What's shaking, guys? MagicActivatr here, coach of the Memphis Drizzlies, bringing you guys a mid-season team update. Now, we are getting ready to go into week 6 of the IBL, meaning that we have completed 5 weeks of battles, which puts us at the midpoint of the season, as there are 10 weeks in the regular season, and then I believe 3 additional weeks for playoffs if you make it to that stage. So, we are officially at that midpoint, and there has been a few changes that I have made to the team since we started a few weeks back. And so I figured, you know what, I need to kind of talk about those changes and kind of give you guys at least my thoughts and why I decided to make these team changes and whatnot. And I really wanted to do one of these each week that we made a change to the team, but it's kind of difficult because between team building, working on other content, and managing IBL stuff in general, it was just kind of difficult for me to sit down and do one of these. So I figured, you know what, we'll just wait and do all of that at once. So here we are to talk about these changes that I've made to the team. So before I get started on explaining everything, I figured I should kind of briefly go over how transactions work in the IBL. So in the IBL, you're allowed 3 transactions during the regular season. Now, a transaction can be one of 2 things. It can be a free agent or a trade. Now, for a free agent, what that means is essentially you drop 1 Mon from your current draft, which is your list of 11 Mons on your team. You drop one of those Mons, and in return, you pick up a Mon from the free agents list. Now, the free agents list is made up of any Pokemon that is not currently on another coach's team. So if a Pokemon was not drafted, it was put on the free agents list. And then, you know, if another coach wanted to pick up a free agent and they dropped a Mon from their team, that Mon went to the free agents list as well. So essentially, you are dropping a Mon from your current team, picking up a Mon from the free agents. Now, in a trade is a transaction that happens between 2 coaches. So if you know, you see a coach that has a Pokemon that you would like to put on your team, you can offer to trade them one of the Mons from your current list of 11 Pokemon, and if they accept, you to exchange those Pokemon, and that is how a trade works. Now, both free agents and trades are tier locked, so whichever Mons that are being exchanged, whether it is through a free agent or through a trade, they have to be from the same tier. So if you're picking up a Mon from tier B as your free agent, you have to drop a Mon from tier B from your team. If you're trading for a Mon that is tier D on your opponent's team, you have to trade them a Mon that is tier D. So that's the basics of how that works. And the other thing about transactions is of the 3 transactions that you're allowed over the season, a maximum of 2 of those can be used on free agents. So if you pick up 2 free agents throughout the season, your final transaction is required to be a trade. But it can really be any combination as long as you do not exceed 2 free agents. So if you don't want to pick up any free agents, you can do 3 trades. If you want 1 free agent, you can do 1 free agent and 2 trades, something like that. But only 2 max free agents can be done for each team. So with all that in mind, hopefully that all made sense to you. I want to kind of talk about the transactions that we made, and hopefully this will all make sense to you. And honestly, I'm kind of glad now that I'm doing this all in one video, because all of my transactions all kind of played off of each other. Like, the moment that I decided I was going to make the transaction, I kind of already had my plan about how I was going to, what I was going to be trying to drop in exchange for, and all of that stuff. So we're going to go ahead though and jump into it and start. And the first transaction I made was going into week 3, and this was a free agent exchange in which I dropped our tier B pick of Mamoswine, which was actually one of our free picks, but it was a tier B Mon, was Mamoswine. And the thing about Mamoswine was I had kind of decided during week 2, I was preparing against the Cyndaquils, which is coached by Charlie Zard. I'd kind of come to a realization that Mamoswine, although it is a great Pokemon, it is a great offensive Pokemon, it didn't really synergize very well with our draft, because I was looking at Charlie's team, and one of the things that I realized was Mamoswine matched up incredibly well against her team. It provided two really, really powerful offensive stabs. In my opinion, two of the best offensive typings in the game, which are ice and ground. I honestly believe those are two of the best offensive typings in the game, because, you know, Earthquake is such a great move, just in general. Anytime you can run Earthquake is really good. And then Ice, even though it is kind of considered a poorer typing in terms of defenses and stuff, Ice is a great offensive typing because it hits so many things super effectively and hard, and so many Mons have access to Ice type coverage, even if they aren't particularly an Ice type Pokemon. But Mamoswine was really rocking out because it got both of those offensive typings as stab, which is a really, really nice thing. And both of those were really, really effective against Charlie's team. The problem that I ran into, though, as I was prepping was I noticed that Mamoswine, having only a base 80 speed, was not really fast enough to be effective at what it did. I know that it does get Ice Shard, and Ice Shard is a really solid move, but the problem was whenever that Mon was kind of the center point of offensive power for the team, it wasn't really able to effectively do its job, because you had to, when you're relying so heavily on that Mon to do damage, it really kind of limits it because of the items that you have to put on it. With that base 80 speed, it's not really fast enough to outspeed, especially a lot of the things that Charlie had drafted, which she had a lot of base 100 and higher Mons, or base 95 and higher Mons, which was kind of crazy, and it was hard for us to be able to outspeed any of that unless we scarfed it. And if we scarfed it, we lost power that we could potentially be getting with Life Orb or Choice Band. And then the problem was, if we Choice Banded, it wasn't fast enough to be able to do damage. And even if we got a move off, if she switched, we were stuck having to switch out. And it just seemed like, especially if rocks got up and stuff, it was one of those things where it seemed like we were taking way too much unnecessary damage to try and do work with one Pokemon. And with the way the rest of our draft rounded up being mostly a more defensive team, with a few, you know, solid offensive Mons, it didn't really make sense, because honestly Mamoswine was one of the biggest powerhouses of the team, but it was just so slow. And I mean, 80's not super slow, but it's hard for it to be a really good offensive presence when you're up against other things that are base 100, base 110, base 95 even. And so I realized that even though it was a great Mon and it had great typing, it just really wasn't working for a team. So I decided, you know what, honestly, as far as a ground type goes, Hippowdon just meshes a lot better with our draft. So I think we can do without Mamoswine. So I opted to drop Mamoswine, which was tier B, and in its place I picked up our new member, which is Houdini, the Klefki. And so we added Klefki here to the team, and that gave us another fairy steel type, the other one being Mawile. And so we got Klefki, and Klefki was a Mon that really, really made sense, because as I was kind of like considering Mons that I might drop, and because like I said, I try to kind of, when I'm thinking about transaction, I'm trying to think more of the big picture and not just like a one-time, one Mon transaction kind of thing. I'm trying to think about overall how I'm going to use all my transactions together. And I'd already kind of come to the conclusion that although Mawile's typing was really, really solid and really unique, that it just wasn't necessarily right to mesh with our team for us to take advantage of it like it probably could be. And so I was thinking about, man, is there any other like steel types or any other fairy types that are available? And then it dawned on me that there was one other Pokemon in the draft that had that exact same typing that no one had picked, and it was Klefki. So we picked up Houdini the Klefki, and honestly, I do not regret the trade for Mamoswine for Klefki for anything, because even though Klefki is not an offensive Mon, so we kind of traded an offensive Mon for a support Mon, to me it just works a lot better for our team, because like I said, generally besides a couple of Mons that are pretty fast, our draft is more defensive and it's more slower. Even some of our stronger, harder hitting Mons are slower, and so being able to have Klefki, who gets Prankster, which is an absolutely great ability, and we've been seeing several mons in the IBL with Prankster do work. Klefki really made sense. So I picked up Klefki with that Prankster, and I figured it would do a lot of work for us because, you know, being able to get Prankster Toxics off, Prankster T-Waves are absolutely great for our team because, like I said, with that speed problem that we have, we can fire off really quick Thunder Waves, and, you know, the guarantee to go first in most cases and get that Thunder Wave off is really nice to have. Not to mention, Klefki gets some other pretty solid support moves. You can run dual screens with it, which we have in past weeks, and it's still able to have that, provide us some Fairy Stab if we need, and the Fairy Steel typing is just really a good combination because it only provides 2 weaknesses in Fire and Ground, and we even have Magnet Rise as an option, which we've used in the past as well. So being able to eliminate one of those typing threats is kind of a nice thing for us as well. So Klefki is here, Houdini is here to put in the work. So to follow up on that transaction during the next week, I decided to go ahead and trade off our other Fairy and Steel type. So in week 4, I decided to make the trade transaction, and it just so worked out that when we had picked Mawa, there was someone else in the draft who was kind of planning on taking Mawa. We just managed to get it before he did, and as it turns out, he had been talking about dropping a mon that was from the same tier and potentially doing some kind of transaction with that mon because he wasn't using it. And so I was looking at it and I was like, yo, this mon would actually not be bad for our team, because at the time I was like, I kind of want to drop Mawa, but there's not really anything else there that I see that I want. I'd like a Rapid Spinner, but the Rapid Spinners that were there aren't really that great, because the only other form of hazard removal that we had at the time was Defog on Star Raptor, and then we had a little bit of control with Espeon's Magic Bounce. But I was kind of nervous about, like, what could we drop this for? I don't really see anything good. And then whenever I found out that this other coach was looking to potentially get rid of this mon, I was like, yo, this would actually work solid for our team, I think. And so we went ahead and traded off Eno or Mawile, who was our tier E pick, and traded it to the Washington Lake Spirits coach by Elite Four walkthroughs, and he gave us Jetpack, the Armaldo. So we've got Armaldo now, and Armaldo actually, this is a trade that I think was a really solid trade on both of our parts, because Elite lacked a Fairy type on his team, which was did seem to kind of hurt him a few times, potentially, even though he was doing incredibly well in the draft. He was really needing this Fairy typing to help him out, and he wasn't even using Armaldo. Everything that Armaldo provided, he had in other mons, and so he kind of really didn't have any use for Armaldo. While once we had picked up Klefki kind of became a solid replacement for Mawile, and it left kind of a hole for us to pick up something that we needed. And Armaldo worked really well for us. It gave us an actual Rapid Spinner over a Defogger, so we were able to remove hazards from our side of the field without removing them from the opponent's side of the field, which is nice. I really like the Bug and Rock typing, as I mentioned, as we drafted Crustal. I really like that typing. It's pretty good with only 3 weaknesses, and they're kind of not the common weaknesses that you would have as a Bug type, which is pretty good. And Armaldo just seemed to work really well, and I think honestly that it can put in some decent work for us over the process of the season, because like I said, it does get Rapid Spin, but we can even use it offensively or defensively. It's really good. It's got I believe Battle Armor. I might be saying the wrong ability. It's one of the ones that, you know, prevents you from getting critted. So it's got good defensive and special defensive stats, I believe, at 120 and 100. I'm completely going off the top of my head here. Can't remember for sure, but it's pretty good in that sense. And one of the cool things is its other ability is Swift Swim. And what's really nice about this is because we do have Klefki, who gets access to Prankster Rain Dance, we actually have the ability to run a Rain team, which I believe I actually did in week 4 against the Great Lake Greninjas. where we basically ran a rain team that I didn't really consider us having until I was looking at our Maldo and the fact that Klefki got Rain Dance, because it works, it meshes well with Melodic. It allows us to run Thunder on Jolteon without fear of missing, and honestly, it just kind of can benefit the team all around and work pretty well. So our Maldo has come. We used it in week 4. It already picked up 1 KO, which is more than it was doing for Elite. So, like I said, it was one of those things where I feel like this was a trade that was beneficial for both of us. So it worked out pretty well. But so as you can see, those first 2 transactions kind of played off at each other, and so you can kind of see where this next transaction is going right out the gate. Immediately in week 5, I decided to go ahead and use my final transaction and my final free agent pickup to drop Crustal, who was our tier D mon or bug and rock type, because at this point I didn't really see any reason to have 2 mons that shared the exact same typing. So we got our Maldo now, who can probably be more effective to our team, in all honesty, than Crustal would be, even though I love Crustal. It's one of my favorite bug type mons, but I figured our Maldo, just with our draft, would work a little bit better. So I dropped Crustal, and in its place, I picked up Mismagius, which we nicknamed Malice. And Mismagius is, in my opinion, a really, really good Pokemon. It was a mon that was slept on. I kind of always have viewed Mismagius as a discount Gengar. It's kind of like getting a lot of the features that Gengar has without the secondary typing of Poison, which could kind of be, I guess, a downfall in a way, but in another way it's kind of good for you, because you don't have that extra weakness to Psychic. But it's got Levitate like Gengar does. Its stats are a little bit lesser than Gengar, but it still gets that huge move pool, that huge variety of moves in both offensive moves and supportive moves. So this thing can really do work. It gets Taunt, it gets T-Wave, Will-O-Wisp, a lot of really good supporting moves, as well as solid coverage all around. It gets a lot of the stuff that Gengar gets with Shadow Ball, Dazzling Gleam, all that kind of stuff, while providing us a Levitate user and another option besides Staraptor as something that's off the ground, which is really, really nice. It gives us that. Plus, with the Ghost typing, it gives us a Spin Blocker, which is something that's pretty valuable, and something that I think could be very useful potentially in some of our future matches. So really, really excited to have that. Mismagius is something I haven't used a whole lot, but I'm excited to try it out. Much like Klefki. Klefki I've actually never used before, and so I was really interested to try it out. And just in the couple of matches that Klefki has come to, it has been useful in some way or another. And so I'm really excited about these team changes. Klefki, Armaldo, and Mismagius coming to the Memphis Drizzlies. And one of the coolest things about these 3 mons coming to the team and dropping the other 3 mons is now we are at a point where we have no repeated typing in our draft, which is, in my opinion, maybe one of the most ideal things that you could do, is have a draft with no repeated typings. I mean, you're still going to have some common weaknesses here and there, but this honestly gives us the widest variety at our disposal to be able to, build our teams each week, is having that palette of all these different typings to choose from and everything. And so I think it's going to be really good for us going through the rest of the season. Like I said, we're 5 weeks in. We are 5-0 at this point in time, which is really, really exciting. Looking to continue to do well throughout the season. I would love to be able to keep the win streak alive, but if we do lose a match, it's not the end of the world. We still have a pretty solid chance at this point of staying in the playoffs, staying in that playoff position to get in there and everything. So hopefully you're going to see the Memphis Drizzlies making it to the playoffs if we don't completely fail super hard in these the last half of the season. But anyway, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button down below for us. Give it your magic touch, because your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. Show some love for your Memphis Drizzlies. But for now, I'm going to make like an Abra and get out of here. So have yourselves a good day. Stay cool, and we will catch you next time.